Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald, but you knew that. And if you don't know that, you will shortly. But we have a great show for you today. Today, we're going to talk predominantly about men and men's issues and the issues that women have with men and how a guy can learn how to be an actual man and not a boy in a man's suit, and can treat other people well and can actually live his life with passion and gusto. Joe Kavanagh is with us, and he is a coach. He is a soon-to-be budding author. He is a speaker, and he's a lifelong sales guy until he wasn't. And Joe, how are you? Nice to see you.
I'm doing fabulous. And when you said my name, I wanted to yell out, "Hey, that's me."
I love that.
I didn't get the opening, though, so I let it go.
Yeah, I really appreciate that because that's one of my favorite things. I did that years ago, and it came back suddenly somehow. So in any event, Joe, it's great to have you here. And you were, let's go back into the mists of time to when you were a lifelong sales guy, weren't you?
I was, and I is. So, yeah, I'd like to kind of paraphrase a line from a movie that I always like. I was born a poor Irish boy. And I was actually born in Dublin, Ireland. And at the tender young age of 6 months, they kicked me out. And our family emigrated to the States. So I grew up in the Boston area. So when you hear the accent, it's the Boston accent.
It's not the other one that you had 6 months of your life with.
No, it isn't. No shite from there. But
now, do you ever go back to there? Do you ever go back to the homeland, as it were?
I do. Matter of fact, we just spent 2 months over there.
Really? It's on my bucket list.
We got back the 30th of January. Went over December 3rd, came back the 30th of January.
Now, I'd go over there, but the roads are narrow and they drive the wrong way.
You know, they will tell you they drive the right way. And there's an interesting history behind that.
Oh, I'd love to know that.
Well, I'm not going to go down the deep rabbit hole, but I'll give you the summary of why they drive on the left. Because it started back in the old English days with the knights riding horseback. And they always carried their sword in a sheath that hung on the left side of them. So they didn't want to pass each other on the right because they could get their swords entangled. So they always traveled to the left of each other when they passed. And that was brought forward to the automotive era. So I'm told. Now, if you can believe an Irishman, there you go.
Well, I'm sure that was a story that was told at an Irish pub, which, by the way, I really would love to. I think those would be a lot of fun to go to.
Oh my God, the stories you'll hear there is incredible. And the Irish have they have a knack for telling you a story that has no truth to it in a way that you're going to believe it.
That I can only imagine.
That keep that from another episode, though, because I've got a few of them.
So let's talk about you and your sales career but there came a point in time in your sales career when it just wasn't working for you like it had been.
Yeah. So background, how I actually got into sales is I never liked school, didn't like college. I'm an outdoorsy type guy. I'm not one to sit there and be dictated to and then spew that information back to you. Not a dummy by any means. Have a good IQ score, and I could have done better in school if I had applied myself. But anyhow, when I finally decided college wasn't for me, I ended up getting a job in real estate, actually moving people for a living, and did that for a number of years. And then I said, there's got to be more to life. So at 29, I finally quit punching the clock and working for the man. And I bought a campground, moved from Massachusetts up to Maine. Now, I'd never owned a business before, did a lot of camping, but never owned one. So I thought, if you love to go camping, it'd be great to own one. And that worked great for a while. But my wife at the time wasn't a fan of it so much. So we decided to sell it. Fortunately, I was able to sell it to the town because they didn't have a town park with a public beach access. So we were able to deed that, sold it to them. And in the deed, we put a restriction where they can never develop it. So when I sold that, a real estate lady that sold it to us, she worked a Century 21 office up there. And she goes, you need to come work for me because you did a fabulous job selling that to the town. So long story short, that got me into real estate sales. And I loved it. I love working with people. I love meeting people and getting to know them and helping them out. And I had a natural knack for it. So I stayed with it. I became successful. And then a few years later, our parents had all passed away. And my wife, again, this is my first wife. My current wife's name is Cindy. So if I say BC, that's before Cindy. We'll shorten it that way. So my BC wife always wanted to move south, get out of the cold. So we made the trek down to Charleston, South Carolina, which is where I live now. And we thought we'd give it a year and see how it goes. And I like to tell people, so far, so good. And they ask how long you've been here. And I say, 30 plus years. So I think I'll stay. And when I came down, my real estate business just took off. So I said, okay, we're staying. We're making a deal of it, a success of it. We're going to stay. And I became quite successful. Not going to lie. I finally got that dream home on the golf course at the country club with the in-ground pool, and life was beautiful. And that was back in the 2000s. And then the market crash came in 2008. And I was heavily invested in real estate. I own 19 properties. Ended up losing 9 of them, which I thought was the end of the world. I was ready to check out, but find out that that was nothing compared to a lot of other people I knew. So I got through that and did come back. And I was, like I said, I was always good at sales. My BC wife used to tell me you could sell ice to an Eskimo, but I didn't just sell regular ice. I sold imported caffeine-free diet ice, the best in the world. So that's how I would take it to the next level. And like I say, became really successful at it. The problem was, and this is touched on in my book, I was doing it, but I wasn't doing it always to be the best for my client. Sometimes it was like, oh, this is a great commission check, or there's good money in this deal. So yes, I'm going to make the deal work and get that money. I was ego-driven, egotistical. So then after the market crashed, that actually, among other things, it led to it was the beginning of the end of our 37-year marriage. And when we split up, I was living in an apartment by myself, just getting by because work was very slow after the crash. And decided one day we have festivals here in Charleston, and they had what we call informally the Shrimp Festival, which is opening day of shrimping season. They do what they call the Blessing of the Fleet. That's the actual name of it. And the boats will parade single file by the end of a pier, and they have clergy people from all different denominations, and they bless them as they go by and hope for a great season. So I'm enjoying the festival, and I happen to run into this beautiful redhead, and she just kind of captivated me. And asked her.
Let me guess. Her name is Cindy.
How did you know?
I'm psychic. I don't know where I get it from, but it just popped into my head,
Wow. No wonder you're so good. So anyway, asked her if she wanted to get a cup of coffee sometime, and she did. I said, "Here's my card. Give me a call if you want to have a follow-up meeting," and she did. So it took off from there. The reason I'm coming to that is shortly after we met. Now she was very spiritual. She was studying Hinduism and Sanskrit and doing a lot of chanting, Reiki, healing, and energy work and that sort of thing. Total opposite of me. I'm about making the sale and, running people down and onto the next deal or whatever. And she said to me, says, if you want to be truly successful, you need to be who you are at your essence, the real you. I'm thinking, I am the real me. I made it this far. I'm 59 years old. What do you mean? And she says, no. You are a person that you think other people want you to be.
Oh, that was a conversation that I'll bet you didn't want to have.
Yeah, you are psychic. And I'm thinking essence. I mean, I don't even know where my essence is. What is it? Tell me what it is. So anyway, it evolved from there. And I did a lot of deep soul searching and a lot of self work. And one of the things she suggested to me was to go to this group guided meditation that she knew about. And I'd never been to one before. So I went to it. Long story short, again, it's in the book. Came out of that a changed person. I really did, a new perspective on life. And decided to do the deep work that I had never done before in my life. I never had a coach. I never had a mentor. They were around me, but I always knew better.
You were one of those guys.
Oh, yeah. I'm right. The world's wrong. And I look back and I think, God, if I had only accepted them back then, you and I wouldn't be talking, because I'd be on a yacht going to Tahiti or someplace right now. And anyway, that did a lot for me, changed me quite a bit. So in that work, I've taken on, I have 2 coaches now, not just one, but I have 2. I've studied NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming.
Yep.
And I am a certified coach in that now. And my wife, Cindy, has gone on to become a master at it. So that's really good. And she's going for her ICF designation, which is like 0.5% of all the coaches in the world get that designation. So really moved up there. And I've studied the bank methodology that you and I have talked about, where we can learn to communicate with people in their language in less than 90 seconds, rather than trying to get them to understand the way we communicate. Combination of those two, my sales took off. I was already closing my real estate deals at a healthy 37%. The industry average is about 22%. I went from 37% up to 86% closing ratio in less than a year.
Wow.
So I knew I had found the answer I was looking for. The other part of that came up is I also ran into a health scare at the beginning of about 6 months, 8 months into the COVID scare, where my blood pressure shot up. And I'd never had high blood pressure in my life. I've always been athletic and very active person. So went to specialists and all this, and they really couldn't find out what the problem was. They just thought it was hereditary and put me on medication. And I'm not one for legal pharmaceutical drugs. So I thought, I really don't want to be on these. I've talked to a lot of people about it, and there's pros and cons both ways. And I sat down with my wife, or I should say she sat me down. She says, let's peel back the layers of the onion and get to the root of this problem.
Oh, well, Joe, I got to stop you here, because not only did you marry a really smart gal, but she's a really accomplished coach, and you were living with her.
Exactly. And she still says it to this day, says, I'm not what you were looking for. I said, no, but you're exactly what I needed.
Yeah, because it's like you were saying, oh boy, here we go. She's gonna undress me and my onion right here.
Exactly. And we did this on, it was a Friday night, and I was ready to sit down and have a typical pizza and a movie on Netflix thing. And she says, okay, we're going to solve this tonight. I said, oh, there goes my night. I didn't really, but and so we started talking about it. She says to me, what would be, we realized it was stress that was causing all the problems. And she said, what would constitute a stress-free day to you? I said, well, I guess I sit around, do nothing. And she said, yeah, right. That would kill you quicker than the stress would.
That's
because
right.
I can't sit still. I just can't. And I said, yeah, you're right about that. And she goes, no, let's get serious about it. So we started doing this. And I said, well, I suppose it would be if I get up and do what I want to do when I want to do it on my schedule. And she goes, okay, don't move. She goes in the other room.
Now hold that thought. We're going to continue that thought when we come back from this. We need to take a real quick commercial break because this is highly interesting to a lot of people who may not have the opportunity to work with somebody and also live with them at the same time, who gets to know you intimately well and can tell you more about you than you might want to even know. So we'll be right back with Joe Kavanagh. Stay with us. At 67 years young, I never thought I'd feel this good again. But thanks to Purium's Ultimate Transformation Lifestyle, to date, I've lost 37 pounds and gained energy, confidence, and a whole new outlook on life. This isn't a diet. Purium is a complete lifestyle change, giving me all the natural, organic, nutrition-packed superfoods that fuel my body, crush my cravings, and help me burn fat naturally without starving myself. No gimmicks, no guesswork, just a simple, proven system that works. Superfood shakes, detox support, and real results. If I can do this at 67, imagine what you can do. It's your time to feel better, look better, and live better with Purium. Let's do it now, and let's do it together. Go to www.positivetalkradio.net and click on the Transform You to get started. That's positivetalkradio.net. Transform You. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. We're talking with a guy. His name is Joe Kavanagh. And
hey, that's me.
That's you. Hey, that's you.
Get it in there.
And he is a remarkable story of, there are lots of this. And I had my epiphany at 42 when I was in the restaurant business, and I was a district sales manager for a food company and had the house, had the kids, had the wife, had all that stuff, but I wasn't happy. And so I ended up going on a spiritual journey and ended up talking to Joe Kavanagh years later on a radio show that I had no earthly idea I was going to do before I started this thing, because it was completely different, but it was my passion. It became that. And so to fast forward, you're sitting there on a Friday night and she says, okay, what would you like to do? If you could do everything that you wanted to in a day, what would it be? And you started to say it, and then she got up and walked away. And then what?
Well, actually, I said it. I said I'd do what I want to do when I want to do it. And so she said, okay, don't move. She goes in the other room, comes back 2 minutes later, has a 3x5 card. She's already written on it in marker. And it says, she says, read this out loud to me. I look at it and I go, okay, I am retired. I choose to do real estate, with choose capitalized and underlined. So in other words, you're choosing to do it. You don't have to do it. And my first response was, yeah, but am I going to make money that way? And she said, money has nothing to do with it. When you are your true essence, the money will flow. And another thing, what she says, the energy will flow, because her and I look at money as green energy. It comes in the form of green paper. It may go out in another form where we're able to pay to go somewhere and train somebody and give them an aha moment, for example. So it's a transference of energy is the way we look at it. Again, a little bit of that spiritual influence. And and as a side note, because you said you had your epiphany, I did go to India with her. She had been 3 times on pilgrimages, and she was going for a 4th time, and I went with her. And that helped me tremendously as well. I highly recommend it if you have a chance to do that. It's, as they said at the ashram we stayed at, the gentleman who founded it, he was a English Benedictine monk, I believe, and he went to find the other half of his soul. And I tell you what, India will give that to you. So there's that little bit. Coming back to the mainstream, now I've got a whole new outlook on life and much more successful. I do more business in less than half the time I used to do it in. One of the biggest benefits of that is not so much making the money. It's now I have half my life back to spend with my beautiful wife, my family, my children, my grandchildren, travel, went to Ireland for 2 months, and because we can. So life just changed tremendously.
And it changed for you because you recognize that if you could, first of all, if you can do real estate, I'm convinced you can do anything. And because it's a hard thing to do until you start getting successful, like getting that first house or that you're going to sell or whatever, and getting people who believe in you. And you have a gift for that. But still, it's hard. But now you're doing exactly what you want to do, and the universe is choosing, and you're choosing to be successful at doing what you're doing now. What are you doing now that is providing you with all this lifestyle?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. I've decided at this point in my life, I've had a very successful career as an entrepreneur and as a salesperson. And over that time as well, I bought and sold multiple successful businesses. Now I am paying it forward by helping others through coaching and mentoring and training so that they can elevate their success and take their business from wherever you are now up to wherever you want to go. Just learning from my, now 40 years. Yeah, 40 years of expertise, experience, and yes, mistakes, so that they won't make the mistakes, because I can skirt them right around the ones I made. And as you can probably relate to, I've made some whoppers.
But isn't that part of the journey, part of the experience, to gain the experience? Yeah, if you don't fail, I don't remember who said it. It was Einstein or somebody, but if you don't fail, you haven't tried.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And when you fail, as I would say in my coaching, fail forward and get back up again.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It's the successful people that get back up again. Everybody fails.
Yeah, and the ones who don't quit, the ones who recognize it as a learning lesson. Well, I ain't going to do that again, but I'm going to continue doing. I'm going to continue going and continuing to grow whatever it is that you're doing, right?
Sure. And you listen to any great speaker, and they're going to tell you about even the famous people who failed. Einstein failed. What's his name? Alexander Bell failed thousands of times. Edison with the light bulb. I heard he had something like 2,000 efforts before he finally got it right.
Yep.
Michael Jordan failed. He didn't make his team, when he first started out. You take any successful people, there's always failure, but the key is to just keep going, because we're human. You're going to do that. And I want to touch on something else. We grew up believing that the school of hard knocks is the best teacher, making those whopper mistakes. You won't do that again. The benefit I see in the world today, especially with the internet, where you can access anything, anytime, you can find that coach or that mentor that can work with you to save you from making those whopper mistakes.
Yep.
So you can, I don't want to say fast track it, but you could eliminate a lot of what probably you and I went through. I know I went through it because we didn't know any better. We didn't have the internet. You didn't have people that could guide you and courses you could take online, that sort of thing. You just had to hope you had the right answer and go for it.
Well, and part of that is that we know what we know, but we don't know what we don't know. And other people that are outside of us that know what we don't know can help us know what we don't know, and then we'll know it.
I know.
That's pretty good right there. I think that's pretty funny.
Repeat that. I didn't quite get it all.
And that's what a good guy. I have a coach. I think everybody that I know that is doing really well, they have a coach.
Yeah.
Because a coach can help you. It's like what Cindy did for you. She was married to you and she knew you inside and out, but still she was able to sit you down and talk in a way that clearly made sense to you. And then you made the adjustments over time, and you're still very successful doing what you're doing.
Yes. And let's face it, I'm 70 years old. I don't need to work. And I don't do it anymore for the money. I love helping people because I can. I can't tell you how many times I just got a call today from an agent at our office, and she says, "Hey," and I barely go in the office anymore. So I used to know everybody. I was in there every day. Now I don't know half the people that work there. And she called me and says, "Hey, I'm new here. We haven't met yet, but so and so said that I was struggling with something." I said, "Oh, call Joe. He knows everything." And she goes, I'm kind of nervous about calling you because she thinks I'm this big, guru type guy or something. And she says, "I just kind of hate to bother you." And I said, "No bother at all. That's what I'm here for." And she goes, "Do you have a second?" I said, "I have all the time you want." And she thanked me profusely when she was done. But that's a key. Just make them feel comfortable and there's none of us are better than the other. Some have had more experience and more experiences, if that's the right way to say it, than others have. And, I have my children's friends. I remember when they were in their early 20s and they'd be going out on a Friday night. And my son ran a bar downtown. He was a manager. And we used to go down there after we'd go out somewhere and we'd sit and have a couple of drinks. And of course, mostly the benefits he'd pay for them. But we got to meet all his friends that would hang out there. And they liked us and we could communicate with them. And they said, I can talk to you easier than I can my parents. I don't know why. And they said, "How you understand what we're going through?" And I said, "I was 22 once as well. I just got there before you did."
A long time before you did, as a matter of fact.
We'll leave that part out, but yeah.
But and that's the thing is, I believe that the highest thing that you can do in your life is to give service back to others.
Oh, yes.
And it is such a self-fulfilling, wonderful thing to be able to do that for other people, and not be self-absorbed. And right now, a lot of us are pretty self-absorbed.
Yeah, definitely a lot of that. And that's one of the things that I really studied for my coaching is be a servant leader. What does servant leadership mean? It means give plenty of quality service. I just drew a blank when I was about to say it. I'm sure you've been in that situation before.
Today, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. But I think you know what I'm saying is make sure you give the best you can, whether somebody's paying you big bucks for it or not. Just do what you can to help others. And you know what? That can actually even come down to little things. It doesn't have to be big things. And I think people could be watching this and saying, "Oh, it's okay for you to say you've been to the top and back and whatnot." I mean, what I do is I choose to go around with a happy face as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I go to the grocery store. I go over here to Whole Foods, which is near us. And I'll be walking up the parking lot. Someone's coming the other way, and they look like they're having a bad day. But you know how we are. We just don't have that happy face all the time. And they'll be looking at you from a distance to see who's coming. And then when they get close, they look down, or they look away, and they're like, what's more interesting down there than me? And I'm not saying that in an egotistical way. It's just like, I'm a fellow human being. So I make it a point to say, hello. And people look, a lot of people just go, oh, hi. And they go on their way. Okay, fine. If you don't want to talk, that's certain personalities are like that. But a lot of people, I think, don't feel recognized and noticed. So I make it a point to notice them. And I have had a number of people kind of look at me like surprised, like, oh, he's talking to me. And they go, hello, and how are you? You know, the standard thing. And I like to do it a little bit differently. Say, I am doing just awesome. How are you today? Oh, I would say, I am doing just awesome. Thank you for asking. How are you doing today? How's your day going? And people start to talk to you. And I know that and some people have said that. It says, you know, you just lifted my spirit. You made my day.
Joe, I've got a quick story to tell about that. But first, I need to take a station break. And when we come back from that, I'm going to tell this story that applies quite honestly to every one of us. And we'll be right back. We're talking with Joe Kavanagh. Joe, if somebody wants to go to your website, where do they go?
They will go to joekavanaghglobal.com, which is not up and running yet, but it is coming soon.
Ah, very good. So put that into your diary and joekavanaghglobal.com.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And we've got a very positive guy with us today. His name is Joe Kavanagh. Yeah. He's an author, he's a coach, he's a speaker, and we're going to talk more about all of that in just a second. But I just wanted to tell you this. I drove a bus in Seattle for 12 years. I drove the long, what's called an articulated bus. So it's got that bend in the middle of it, and it can take 50 or 60 or 70 people can be on your bus at any given time. My goal was to say hello to everybody that got on the bus. Hey, how you doing? How are you? Nice to see you. And about 20% of them actually responded. Most of the other folks just kept on going. Now, if that bothered me, it would have been easy for me to stop, but I didn't stop. And there were actually even a couple of times when I'd say, hey, how you doing? And the guy would stop and turn around and say, what did you say? I said, hi, how you doing? And oh, okay. And so it really became a game for me. And I could change the attitudes and the energy that was on my bus by my behavior, nobody else's, but my behavior as the driver of that bus. And that was a great lesson for me to learn. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, but
there's that servant leadership, lead by example. That's the phrase I was looking for before.
There you go. Lead by example, and that is a T-shirt. We're coming up with lots of sayings to put on T-shirts, and that'll be one of them.
Oh, okay, I like that one.
Yeah, because that's really important. So now you are a coach and you're a mentor. You also mentioned briefly that you love to be a speaker and to be a positive motivational speaker. Would that be fair?
Yes, yes, very much so. As a matter of fact, of course, being Irish, I'm not
Right.
afraid to tell a story or two. And matter of fact, when I'm with my wife and I say, real quick, let me tell you, and she go, real quick, that's not even in your vocabulary. However, yeah, it's interesting. Last year was a transitional year for me. And let me tell you the story behind it if we have time. I believe we
Yeah,
do.
we do.
I had thought, okay, this is like it was when COVID hit. I decided, okay, business is changing weirdly. People are starting to do a lot of coaching. There are some people out there that I'm not sure why they're doing the coaching, but they're doing it. And everybody said to me, you should be giving back. And, I had thought about that I could go into our real estate office, do some trainings, things like that, which I have been doing already. Then I learned this personality methodology right around that time with the bank methodology and became a certified trainer in it. So I thought, well, I'll go out and train that, help teach people how to be more successful at sales. And that's what I was doing for 2 or 3 years during COVID, especially because it worked out on Zoom. And then last year, my coaches have been telling me, you want to get out and speak on stages if you want to get better clients. I said, well, how am I going to do that? Well, an event was coming up in Vegas that they knew about from prior years. And they said, this would be a great place to get introduced to the world. Good experience for you. You actually get up on a stage in front of a crowd and give a 45-minute talk. I'm like, oh, 45 minutes. Wow. Okay. So I started preparing for it about 2 months ahead of time, or maybe 10 weeks ahead of time. And I'm not one to sit down and write things out like that. I'm an action guy, just like instant type of things. I don't want to be sitting there forever working on something. However, I knew I had to do it. And I came up with what was a good talk. And it was all about how to be more successful at sales. But there was something eating at me inside. Turned out it was my gut feeling. And it just didn't seem like that was quite right for me. And I literally woke up one morning and it was about 2 to 3 weeks before the actual event. And I said, well, I'm going to be nice. I said, screw this. That's not what you're going to write. This is a story you're going to write. And I ended up writing, we touched on it a little bit, the story of who I was and how I became who I was. And to me, I thought, that's not really a sales story. But yet when I wrote it, and I wrote it in like an hour, I looked at that and I got emotional reading it back to myself. Like, oh my God, can I actually do this? This is pretty deep and personal. And so I showed it to my wife. She goes, absolutely, that's the message you're going to give. So I went out to Vegas, got up on stage, did it, and got incredibly positive response from it. And the whole message was about don't be the person that you think others want you to be. Be yourself at your true essence, like we talked earlier. And when you do that, you put the ego aside. That was the hard part for me. And you come from the heart. And when you come from the heart, people will connect with you. And people want to work with people they can connect with. So it came around, but not in a way I ever expected it. And actually, the title of my talk was Checking Your Ego at the Door and Putting Compassion into the Sales Cycle.
Ooh.
And I had men coming up to me afterwards and hugging me and saying, thank you for saying what you said. I needed to hear that. And I also had women coming up to me and saying, you need to get this message out there because men especially need to hear it. And it's a lot of it has to do with, you and I talked about a little bit in the green room before the show, was at least in our generation, I want to say, and this is general, this is not everybody. I grew up, and most people I knew grew up, men had to be stoic. Men are the strong person in the relationship. They don't sit down and cry and break down because they had a bad day or somebody yelled at them and that sort of thing. That's for women to do. The men have got to be the strong guy, the leader. So we kept everything inside. We didn't share that. And I don't know about your experience, but I spent a lot of time in gyms, and you go to a gym, you're not going to sit there and talk to a guy and start crying on his shoulder because you had a bad day or a bad week at the office, right? Or a deal fell through on you, you know? So,
I'm laughing because if you went to the gym and started to do that, like you're in the weight room and the other guy, and you're saying, boy, I've had a really bad day, can you sit down and talk to me about it? They'd look at you like you're crazy.
well, they might want to talk to you a little bit, but they want to know, where'd the deal go wrong? They don't want you crying on the shoulder. Just say, oh, I feel awful. You know,
Yeah,
like, okay, get away from me, buddy. Right. Whereas women are more prone to do that. And at least that's my experience in life. So part of that, what I realized too, and I've learned this, was the depression rate on men has really accelerated with COVID, as have a lot of other things too. And depression is one of the number one causes of suicide in men. And probably in most people, but definitely male, it's really shot up. The percentages have really gone up. And I started to connect the dots. And like, okay, we don't express ourselves. And when I gave this talk and the reaction I got from people, I was stunned, quite honestly. I didn't expect that good of a reaction. And so now I've been talking about how men can open up and show more of their feminine side. We have that masculine and feminine energy.
Yep.
And it's always been skewed to one side. Now, another way you can see this is women over the last 10, 20 years. It's been, we got to speak up. We got to stand. We got to be in our power and, break those glass ceilings and not be putting up with what the men have been doing with us for generations. And I think some men, I didn't, but I want to say that there's probably some part of the population out there that felt that as a threat. And they talk about the women liberalism and women lib.
Yep. And by the way, they don't say that anymore, but
no, they don't.
Your point is well taken.
Thank you. And I date myself sometimes, but
I date myself because nobody else wants to date me. But that's a story for another time.
Bada boom. But you know what? I'm very happy to see the thing that gets me is, and I said this, and I probably shouldn't, and maybe I shouldn't even say it on here, but I'm going to, because I'm an honest guy and I'm open. What I wear it on my sleeve. I was talking to 3 or 4 women at one of the events I was at, very successful women. And I said, I noticed today that they have all these women's groups. How come they're just for women? And I got to look like, are you kidding me? What we put up with from you for the last 100+ years? I said, no, I'm just curious. I'm not saying it's right or wrong or indifferent. I said, I would like to be in on some of these conversations because I grew up, there's 7 of us in the family and I have 5 sisters, 1 brother. So I'm very accustomed to being around women.
Well, and you know that women have, it's interesting. Women have an innate connection with each other. And so they're open and willing to talk about things that, oh, by the way, just so you know, women talk to each other about things that they will never say in front of a mixed company group because they feel like the other women get them and they understand them, and they'll never say that in a mixed conversation. So, but men don't either. And oh, by the way, before I forget this, I wanted to mention this, is that remember when you said that you wrote the new speech in an hour?
Yes.
That was because that was divinely assisted. Does that make sense?
Yes, exactly. It was the universe. I was downloading.
You were absolutely downloading. They were saying, this is what you need to write. This is what we want you to write. This is the message we want you to get out there.
Yes, it's as a lot of people would say, it was God telling me, channeling through me. This is the message I want to get out there. And I call it the universe, whatever way you want to look
That's
at
what
it.
I call it too.
It's energy, it's connection. And yeah, and after I wrote it, I felt relieved. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not even going to argue with it. And it was divinely intervened. So,
and again, and I say this a lot on this show, you said yes to the universe.
Absolutely. Yes. Wayne Dyer talks about that a lot. The universe only knows how to give. Are you open to receiving?
Exactly. Now, in my way of thinking, and we need to take our last break in just a sec, but in my way of thinking, if you don't ask, they're not going to assist you, because they're not really allowed to until you open up and say yes to everything. As a matter of fact, here's our Rochelle's joining us because we were talking about men, so now's a good time for her to join us. We need to take a quick break, and we'll be right. Surprise! Here she is. We'll be right back after we do this quick message, and it's only 30 seconds. Just leave it alone. We'll be right back.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too...
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew. A girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, and Rochelle is here, and Joe Kavanagh is our guest. And boy, have you missed a great show, Rochelle?
I'm sorry, Kevin. I did start listening to the beginning. I was taking a class online. It wouldn't let me stop. So I decided to pop in while I still could.
I have a question to ask you, because Joe and I were talking about this, and I just want you to verify or deny it. And that is that when women are together talking, they will talk in a way that is a lot more honest and deeper just with women, rather than if they were with women and men. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say that's true. I've seen a lot of men tend to open up more around women because they are able to have feminine energy that allows that space for them to feel the comfortability and the freeness of talking about emotions, because guys are not so easy at doing that. And it's a huge thing that I think we could learn to evolve with.
See, Joe, that's why I have her on this show.
Well, first of all, hello, Rochelle. I love the
Hi,
name.
Joe.
And so pleasure to meet you. I did see you on a couple of the podcasts I looked at before I got on here. And yeah, and I'm so glad to hear you say that. And it is true. Men are more open today. I'm finding that more and more, but there's still a long way to go. And everybody can benefit from this. And that's why when I've got this, my purpose, my why going forward for the rest of eternity, as long as I'm around, that's what I want to do. Is I want to get out, especially talk to men and the women who want their men to improve, and just help them. I've learned quite a bit. We haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg on what I've been through, and I've learned from all that, and I want to pay it forward that way.
That is absolutely beautiful. I'm so glad you're here to be doing that, Joe. And yeah, I've realized too, a lot of ins you can get when it comes to men is either their mothers, their aunts, or their grandmas. Because really one of those three is usually the woman that they look up to and will compare a woman to. So if you get them to open them up to them in the first place, then slowly they'll start to do it with others.
Yes. And I want to get this out, because it was told to me after this talk in Vegas, even though I've been through all this, I was still a little surprised by it. when this one woman came up to me and we were talking about it, she said, God, we would love men so much more if they would be more emotional with us. I'm like, really? I wish I had known that 30 years ago.
Yes. Emotionally stable, that is.
Good clarification. Yes. Yes.
Well,
See,
so now
she's
your
here for a
next,
good reason.
yes,
Yeah.
indeed, your next book is going to be a dating book. If you're a man, how to actually get the woman by being emotionally available.
Yes.
Because so many guys are just not emotionally available.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I believe it's what I'm here to do right now. So if you know groups that just want me to come and talk to them, I'm happy to do so. Obviously, if they want to have some coaching, I still have some openings for clients. So, we can do one-on-one. I can do group coaching, anything they want to do. I also work with a group of people. We call ourselves Team Excellence. There's about 12 of us because we're all tops in our field and we're all in different fields and different industries. And we can combine any 12 of us to go in. If like a corporation wants training done, we've done that. We've helped with schools for anti-bullying campaigns by understanding personality types, because those kids you're picking on, it's not because there's something wrong with them or they're weird. They're typically introverted and extremely intelligent and don't have the social skills.
Yeah.
And once the other children can understand that, they start to be nicer to them and support them. So there's so much that can be done, and with adults too.
And
Yes.
before we go, and Rochelle, I'm going to go make you go take this test.
Okay.
But before we go, talk about Code Breaker Global, please.
Oh, sure. That was when I was researching and learning things. It was one of the things that we got introduced to. And you talk about divine intervention. We went to an event to see Tony Robbins, and they had all these different speakers there. And we're getting ready to leave at the end. There was one more speaker, and it was a woman, and she got up to talk about this. And I was ready to cut out early. I never heard of this thing. I didn't know. My brain was full. My wife said, nope, you never walk out on the final act. She was an actress. And he says, plus she's the only woman, so show some respect. I said, okay. So she wasn't 15 minutes into her hour talk, and she had us sold on this. And it's called Bank. It's a personality methodology, but it's been reverse engineered. Because if you take a personality methodology and let's say DISC or whatever the other ones are, the color codes and all that, it tells you about you.
Mm.
What this does, it tells you about the person that's sitting in front of you. So, Brichelle, I'm in real estate. I'm coming to list your home. I want you to connect with me, so you're going to want to work with me.
Mm-hmm.
I can show you 4 cards that you'll do online. You'll see the exercise, but 4 little cards like this that have a set of values on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I ask you to look at all 4 cards and then sort the cards in order of which one best describes you on top down to what least describes you on the bottom. And that helps me to know you better. And based on the combination that you hand back to me, I can adapt my language to a way that you're going to like. For example, 2 opposites here are your blueprint type person. They're very conservative. They're by the books. They're very traditional. They go by the rules. They don't like to take risk. So I'm not going to talk about risk. I'm going to talk about walking you through the whole process step by step by step. We have an outline for it. Then another type is action, which is me. And I'm like, I don't want to hear any of the details. Yep. How much money am I going to make? Okay? Yeah. How am I going to come out of this? And don't waste my time. If you go into a whole presentation, I'm out. I've checked out. Squirrel, that sort of thing. And that's why I didn't like school, Kevin, because I didn't like to just sit there all day and be dictated to.
Me too.
Me
too. Now I know her code, or at least part of it anyway. And then you got other people who, like, if you're a high knowledge person, you want to hear all the data. So I'm going to adapt my presentation to give you all the market data for the last 3 years and where it's projected to go for the next year. And when I do that, simply by adapting it, I was telling Kevin earlier, that's when my conversion rate shot up from 37% to 86%. And all of a sudden I can connect with people. And it's just a fabulous tool. And I implement that into our coaching. I used to think I was just going to be a trainer in that, but I've gone way beyond that. That's one of my tools that I use, but it's a very effective tool.
I love
Okay.
it. I will look into it for sure.
Okay, my number one category was the yellow card. What does that mean? How would you address me?
You are a caring person and you look out for your tribe of friends. You have
No.
your friends are close to you and you take care of them. And I think your second card was, I had it here. I pulled it up on the screen. A knowledge guy. That's why I said you're smarter than I thought. So you do like to take care of things. You look out for others, and you are also a very intelligent gentleman, and you do your research on things before you take any action on something.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And you probably have Rochelle because, well, maybe not Rochelle, but you got somebody behind the scenes that does the planning for you because you don't like to plan things.
God, that's not fair, Joe.
He does need help with planning sometimes. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
well aware of that. That's not who I am. I like to do things kind of off the cuff, but at the same time, I'm also very caring. At least I think I am. Rochelle would know. Very kind and caring for people that are in my world and stuff. And that was my number one. My least one, I think, was the blueprint.
Yeah, that's why you don't like to plan things, because that's what they
That is stability, structure, systems. I hate systems.
planning,
Planning processes.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing with me, especially when I first did that, I threw that blue card away. Like rules are made. I got a question, Rochelle. Rules are made to be
Guidelines.
See, I just learned something else about her. Now I know her code.
I've been told all my life, Joe, like, you never listen, you never do what I say, you never follow the rules. I'm just not good at it. Sometimes
you're going to be high in nurturing and action. I can tell, because for blueprints, rules are meant to be followed. Nurtures, they're meant to be. They can be bent depending on the situation. Actions are made to be broken. Yeah.
Oh, I'm a rules are meant to be broken kind of guy.
Yeah. Let's test it as far as I can to see until it breaks.
Yep. I'm that guy that the exit ramp is backed up for 2 miles. I'm like, I'm not waiting in that line.
I'd rather fly over it and just
somebody will be on their cell phone and leave a gap, and I'll just shoot right in there.
Yep.
Okay, Joe, you're gonna have to come back. We're not done yet. We're not near done. We got way too much stuff to talk about. And will you come back and let us bother you some more?
I'll think about it. Sure. Yeah. No, of course I will.
And I'll be there the whole time.
I would love to have you there to help defend me, Rochelle. That would be wonderful.
I'd love to.
And I just got to tell you, Joe, go through your. How can somebody get a hold of you again?
Okay, so I have a website I'm still working on, and it's called joekavanaghglobal.com. The easiest way to get me now is through LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. And if you reach out to me and message me there, I can give you a link where we can set up a call so we can have a one-on-one. I call it a discovery call, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. I know within 15 minutes if we want to work together or not. So, and if somebody just wants to chat, I like to chat. And on Facebook as well, but that to me, I'm not so happy with it lately because of the things that are on there. But I like LinkedIn better.
And I'll tell you this, I also have a 15-minute discovery call, which I can never do, not once in 15 minutes.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. He sucks at it.
They're 1 hour calls, right? I book my 15-minute calls every hour. If that tells you anything.
Yep. And Joe, I want to thank you for being here. And Rochelle, it's been the best 15 minutes of my life, including those 2 times I had kids. But we'll talk about it another time. Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Joe. It was so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. And Kevin, it really has been an honor for me. And I love your show. I'm not an action guy. I don't take time to watch podcasts so much. And you sound really funny at 1.5 to 2 speed. But I get through them.
I'm going to test that.
Oh
that,
my
Joe.
God. Just be prepared.
Oh, Joe, thank you so much. Joe Kavanagh has been our guest. Go to his website, which again is
JoeKavanaughGlobal.com.
it'll be up soon, I hope. And
Yes, YouTube.
and thank you, Joe. And Rochelle, thank you so much. And hang around, guys. I got to do this, and we'll be right back. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin@kmmedia.pro.